Hello, Coleman29 here. Today I want to talk about Legend of Zelda, specifically Breath of the Wild and the timeline placement. I know I'm not the first person to make a video on this, and this certainly isn't going to be the best made video. I mean, I've seen some downright incredible videos made on this, and there's no way I can compete in quality, honestly. I'm still trying to figure out how to edit game footage into videos. But I do kind of want to toss my hat into the ring in terms of theories on timeline placement. I've seen videos I agree with and videos I disagree with, and a bunch of different types of theories. And I do want to say what I think, and I do want to just contribute and toss in what I think into the discussion. Before I get into this, really, I do want to say, so the theory that's really been bugging me, it's this idea that Breath of the Wild is either going to combine all three timelines or it's a combination of all three timelines. How that would work, I don't know. And this idea of using the to combine it with worlds that I can't even see how anyone would even know exist. It just all that would really serve to do is be to get rid of three unique timelines and turn them all into just one. And to be honest, this is really bugging me because it reminds me of all those single timeline theorists before Hyrule Historia came out who insisted that every single game took place on a single timeline. I just really don't like that. It's all it would do is limit Nintendo and their ability to create Zelda games. I don't like that. That's the one theory I really can't stand. Now, I don't agree with the other ones, but that one just really annoys the hell out of me. My thoughts, I'm just going to dive right into this. I just wanted to get that out of the way. My thought for the Breath of the Wild is that this takes place at the end of the Downfall timeline. Now, if you're a big Zelda fan, if you have Hyrule Historia, or if you've even looked up the timeline, you'll know what the Downfall timeline is. But if you're not as familiar with that, I'll explain it for you. You see, this is the Zelda timeline. You have a whole series of games starting with Skyward Sword, going up to Ocarina of Time, and splitting off into three. Yes, three different timelines. There is what we already figured out a long time ago, the child timeline and the adult timeline. The child timeline, right here, is where basically it's the actual ending of Ocarina of Time, when Link goes and tells Zelda and he warns about Ganondorf. Then we see then that leads into Majora's Mask, and then Twilight Princess. Let's see, we can see Twilight Princess, and then Four Swords Adventure. So Ganondorf was executed and then sent to the Twilight Realm. And then the adult timeline is the actual final battle of Ocarina of Time. And that's the world where Link was sent from. When he was sent to the past by Zelda so that he could live out his childhood, that's where he was sent from. And that world continued. And that's where the timeline split comes from. It's really interesting. That's where the timeline split came from. And that's something that Miyamoto's been talking about since the Ocarina of Time came out. But that leads to Wind Waker. See, that leads to Wind Waker. Then we have Phantom Hourglass. And then we have Spirit Tracks at the bottom there. We also have a third timeline. The third timeline is what was revealed in Hyrule Historia. If you're not familiar with that, or I guess people have kind of forgotten about the whole drama with the Zelda timeline. But the Downfall timeline is where Link fought Ganondorf at the end of Ocarina of Time and died. He died. This leads to the imprisoning war described in A Link to the Past. And then that goes into the Oracle games, and then Link's Awakening, and then Zelda 1, and then Zelda 2. So, what I'm saying is that, this is my theory for Breath of the Wild, that it takes place at the end of the Downfall timeline, after Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. Now, you might be asking, well, why do you think that? Well, without showing a whole bunch of details and stuff, I do have some stuff that is really stuck out to me. First of all, one thing that stuck out to me was the fact that the word decline was used a lot in the game demo that we had seen from Breath of the Wild. It seems the old man uses the word decline several times, and I saw it in the dialogue a lot when I was watching some other videos. And there is one section of the timeline that relates to the era of decline. Would you like to guess which games take place in the era of decline? Zelda 1 and Zelda 2. Specifically, the games that they're trying to harken back to, at least not Zelda 1, not so much Zelda 2, but in a lot of ways it's actually harkening back to Zelda 2. One of the things that I'd like to point out is that this actually had a pretty in-depth combat system, and it had more RPG elements, very much like Breath of the Wild. Also, Zelda 2 is the only time Link could freely jump. I thought that was interesting. Another thing I want to talk about involving the story of Zelda 2 a bit. Now, important fact, Zelda 1 and Zelda 2 both feature the same Link. Now, I'll run through a little bit of the story because it actually does feature information about the stories for Zelda 1 and Zelda 2, all the Zeldas, up into Link Between Worlds. Link Between Worlds is not included because it came out several years later. Now, basically, Zelda 2 starts off with Link getting a mark on his left hand, the mark of the Triforce. Link now he goes and tells Impa, yada yada. I'll skip over the introduction boring part. Link and Impa arrive at the unopened chamber in the North Castle. Link presses his crest against the door and it opens with a clatter. The room within contains an altar, upon which a beautiful girl lay. The sleeping girl was Princess Zelda I, who had been cursed to slumber for all of eternity. Now, this is another thing that really struck me. When I saw the beginning, and when they were playing the Treehouse demo, and you saw Link wake up and he'd been asleep for 100 years, I was like, okay, this is really giving me vibes from Zelda I, from Zelda 2. I thought, that may be a reference. I can't confirm that, but I think it is. At least it certainly reminded me of Zelda 2. Now, another important note on the unopened chamber. Only the chosen one capable of wielding the Triforce can open it. The means of entry is a secret to everyone, hardy har, but Impa's line, the Sheikah. Now, isn't that an important note? This is the first, the Sheikah have always been important. Mostly it's just Impa. In fact, it's always just Impa. But in Breath of the Wild, we're finally seeing one other Sheikah, and 2, we're actually getting Sheikah are actually doing stuff important. It's not like, yeah, there aren't a whole lot left. I'm excited to see that. But there's a lot of the stuff about the Sheikah technology. Now, there is a theory that I do kind of like. It's that a theory that the same Link from Zelda 1 and Zelda 2 is the same one we see in Breath of the Wild. A little older. I like this one, but this could very well be an entirely separate Link. It really could, honestly. And it might. I'm pretty sure it probably is going to be a separate Link. Simply to open up, that time period to let them build a story out of that. But who knows? It could be either one. Continuing on. Let's see. Impa recounted to Link the story of Princess Zelda I and entrusted him with 6 crystals and a scroll bearing the crest of the Hyrule royal family. Link understands the script despite not being able to read it. Yada yada. Magic. Recorded on the scroll was the location of the Triforce of Courage. Impa appealed to Link, asked him to yada yada, he helped him palace. This is the interesting part. Oh, and this one really, when I was rereading Hyrule Historia in preparation for this video, this idea stuck out to me. Inserting the 6 crystals he had received from Impa into the stone statues located deep within the palace's dotting Hyrule, Link dispelled the barrier to the Valley of Death and opened the path to the Great Palace. Now, inserting crystals into stone statues to open things. Where have we seen a similar method of opening things? The Sheikah Slate. And this just really like, this really excited me when I was reading this. There's all this talk about, Sheikah stuff in this game, in this, entry here for the Zelda 2, and it's exciting me to see what possibilities, we see for the Sheikah Slate in Breath of the Wild. But it still functions on that same idea. You're still inserting it into stuff to open it. In this case, it's much more advanced. Now, there's also all the talk about technology, and one of the things, a lot of people are hoping for a return of the Oku from Twilight Princess, or at least one version of the Oku. I would actually really like to see that, especially with all the technology. There's this floating island that people are seeing, and a lot of people are wondering if this is, the city in the sky. I would be ecstatic if we got a return of the Oku in this, and it was developing showing that if they helped with the technology, since they had super advanced technology in Twilight Princess. But who knows, really? It's just a theory. Also, there's a side note about the 6 palaces. These palaces serve as a barrier to the Great Palace, in which the Triforce of Courage is hidden. Guardian deities, guardians. Guardian deities are placed at the entrances to defend them against outside invaders. Only one who is worthy will be able to defeat them and dispel the barrier. Now, Calamity Ganon in Breath of the Wild is being trapped within Hyrule Castle. Now, a lot of people have noted that there are these slanted spires towards it, and people have said they've seen 4. I haven't been able to see a clear picture of this, but it would match up with what I'd heard of there being 4 main dungeons. But what if you have to shut down the barriers to fight Calamity Ganon to get into the castle, and that would probably be the final dungeon in a lot of ways, similar to the moon in Majora's Mask. It's a possibility. I don't know if that's exactly what's going to happen, but it's an idea nonetheless, and it actually matches up with what we've seen from Zelda 2, especially in relating to inserting Sheikah things into things and opening things. There's really not a whole lot, to go on. We really, honestly, haven't seen much. We've seen a lot of content, but in terms of story, Nintendo's been very tight-lipped about this, and I'm glad. Honestly, I like this whole theorizing thing. I like the whole thing. I remember when Skyward Sword released, and everyone was always talking about stuff, and we played the game. So I'm really excited to see what happens in Breath of the Wild. But yes, I am very sure this takes place at the end of the Downfall timeline. If this is the actual Link we've seen from the original games, has yet to be seen. But one thing that would make that interesting... Oh yeah, a couple of points I forgot to mention. It would actually make the whole idea of them recreating a lot of what happened in recreating things from Zelda 1, make that, mean quite a bit. Now, let's see. Yes. This is something that they actually pointed to. Nintendo pulled this art quite a bit. Is this art here of a Link on the cliff looking at the mountains. Now, they actually did recreate that. There's a cliff you can go on, you can overlook and see these mountains. Which I think just even heavier, it implies even more heavy. That this is going to be connected to this game more so than it would be to other games. Another important note, let's see, let me go to the link to the past section. Another important note to make is that I saw this in another video. This picture here of the Master Sword. This is the Master Sword in A Link to the Past. Someone took this picture and overlaid it over the trailer, and we get a shot of the Master Sword rusting. Everything down to the pedestal to the lighting is a 1-to-1 match, which is also one of the things when I first saw that in the trailer. That's one of the things that heavily implied to me this is going to be in the Downfall timeline, because that's in A Link to the Past, and we know that the sword was returned there, and considering all of the games that happen after that don't use the Master Sword. It's an interesting thing to remember. Link only uses the Master Sword in A Link to the Past. That was actually the first game that introduced the Master Sword. Then you have Oracle games, Link's Awakening. Both are more or less side stories, which don't involve the Master Sword. And then, yeah. And then you have Zelda 1 and Zelda 2, which definitely don't have the Master Sword. I think you get, like, what, the Silver Sword in the original Zelda? I don't particularly remember. But we don't see the Master Sword in these games. So, this could actually be an interesting interesting reveal of this is the Master Sword. And the whole rusting thing, I'm actually really certain that there's some sort of magic, because we've seen it even in Twilight Princess, which has, I guess, something similar. Finding the Master Sword in the Sacred Grove, it's still sparkly and shiny. And the Master Sword has always been sparkly and shiny, no matter what. So, considering that this, considering that, it's also very, very much probably a magical corruption that you were probably going to get the Master Sword and you're probably going to have to fix it, very much akin to Wind Waker, where you had to repower the Master Sword. I'd be interested to see that again. I'd also, another side point to mention, and I think I'm pretty much done proving and showing my points for why I think this is in the Downfall timeline and going to take place after Zelda 2. One thing I do want to talk about, one little last point I want to say, is I do wonder if this is going to show any hints towards Fi. Now, we know that Fi went into a slumber as a seal, and retroactively we see that Fi has basically been in the Master Sword this whole time. So it's interesting to know that what this could mean. This could we could actually be discussing Fi in this timeline. I'd be interested in seeing how they approach that, considering that despite the fact that Fi could be annoying when it came to the gameplay, I actually really liked her character. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it for all that I have. I really just wanted to get this out here because I've seen some people have similar ideas but differ on a few parts, so I wanted to get my specific theory out there. Excuse me. So, I will probably make more videos involving Breath of the Wild sometime later, but we'll have to wait till we get more information from Nintendo. And I do kind of want to sit on this a little bit and then wait until we get more information. Probably gonna have to wait until the game comes out to get anything significant, because Nintendo is infamously tight-lipped about the story, especially with Zelda. But yeah, I do hope to get around to that at some point. And I really am super excited to play the game. I'm excited for an open world Zelda. But yes, thank you for watching, and if you do have other theories about the Zelda timeline, about what you thought, if you like my idea or if you don't like the idea, I do like to see comments below about whether you agree or disagree. But thank you for watching.